the first woman, a name whispered in fear and reverence. Lilith. She was not created but born of the earth, wild, untamed, equal to Adam before the serpent's whisper, equal to God before the fall. But then came the reckoning. When she would not bend to his will, he cast her out of Eden. You will be taken, God had said, by a stronger than you, a king of pride, and you will bear his child and his children, and they will be the kings of old. What prophecy could be more dire than that? Who was this stronger than her, and what would become of her children? More importantly, how did she rise again? In order to understand her end, we have to go back to the beginning, because this is the story of her fall, the story of the first sin. It's not hers or Adam's, but Lucifer's. For it was he who fell first, and it was because of him that the first woman rebelled, and it was because of her that the first demon was born. To tell that story, we have to travel beyond the garden to the heavenly court where the son of the morning sang. With wings outstretched like an eagle's, he soared on high. His voice echoed through the cosmos, declaring his perfection. But it wasn't arrogance that swelled within him, it was envy. For when the Almighty proclaimed the creation of man, joy filled every heart in heaven except his. And so he turned away from the assembly, wounded and alone. Soon he found himself drawn to the warmth of the sun, reveling in its glow, and there he made his stand against the Creator. In the book of Isaiah the prophet cried, "How art thou fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning, that star of the east cut down to the ground, which didst humble the nations of the world?" Some say he didn't actually fall, that all this time he stood fast upon the mountain peak, but others tell the tale of a mighty battle, of a warrior who fought with the sword of wisdom, and cast the rebel from the heights of heaven, broken and banished. But if the Lord was so compassionate, why did he banish him rather than break his hold? Yes. Even in his fall, Lucifer was beautiful. The prophet continues, "O King of Tyre, thou wast the perfect seal, and in wisdom and in beauty thou perfection was thy seal. Thou art of the purest sort of gold, precious stones, coral and madrepore. In the day of thy planting, thou wert planted in a most excellent garden, a paradise of God of every precious stone, the very best sort of gold. The voice of the shofar, the sound of the harp, will cease in the garden of God, for the voice of the king is terrible by the oath of the Most High, to whom he swore."
Ow.
So though the warrior struck him down, the Almighty's heart was heavy.
They will.
And yet as the rebel descended, another spirit was summoned, Samael, the angel of death, whose visage chilled the hearts of men, and whose touch brought fevers that burned like fire. With eyes like glowing embers, he came before the Most High, and asked why he had been called. And the Almighty showed him the fallen warrior and commanded him, "Arise, heal him, and set him free." And so it was done. The angel bound up his wounds and lifted him up until his wings grew strong once more. Then he said, "Depart, do not return, lest judgment overtake you all." So Lucifer left heaven, not broken, but forever changed. He flew over the mountains of the east and settled in the land of Nod, a place of darkness and shadows where no sunbeam dared intrude. There he built a fortress of black obsidian, impenetrable and eternal. He gathered to him the fallen angels who shared his scorn for the Most High, and made them lords over the creatures of the night. The rest is silence. We don't know what transpired between that moment and the next, but somehow word got back to the first woman that an angel had fallen. And overcome with compassion, she left Eden to search for him, traveling across the desolate lands until she came to the fortress of shadows. There she found him upon a throne of bone, his face hidden behind a veil of smoke and flame. And without a word he reached out to her, and she took his hand. And in that instant all memory of Eden, of innocence and bliss, evaporated into dust and vanished from her mind. In that moment they were only two souls in darkness, bound together by their longing for light. Together they returned to Eden and made their home in the Garden of Gethsemane, where Lucifer waited until God himself came to him in a dream and gave him a choice. "Choose this day," the Almighty said, "whom you shall serve. If the gods of our fathers, then serve them. But if the Lord, then serve him." Now surely Lucifer's heart leaped at these words, for how could he return to a god who had cast him out? Yet Lilith knew better than to defy the Most High. So when Lucifer refused, the Almighty laid his hand upon the barren earth, and from the clay he formed a new woman, one who would bear his mark and bear his name, whom he called Eve. But some say the first woman was not shaped by God's hand, but made whole by Lucifer's love. When she returned to Eden, Adam heard her laughter ringing through the trees. And when he saw her dancing beneath the moon, his heart stirred within him. And so they danced together under the stars and rejoiced in their love. But in the morning, when the sun climbed high and revealed the scars of their weariness, they knew they were not meant to be. For Eve was made of clay and dust, while Lilith was born of the winds and tides. They had nothing in common, nothing to share. And so when the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of orange and red, they parted ways. And Lilith walked away, leaving Adam with his bride of clay, and went back to her lover. And there she waited, bearing the fruit of his seed. First there was Lilu, then Nama, and lastly Ashima, which bore the darkness of their father. Each carried the scars of his pain. They were demons, but Lilith was their mother, and so they followed her into the wilderness. For many years she kept to herself, hiding her children and the warrior who loved her from the eyes of heaven. And it seemed that maybe her life would end there, forgotten and alone. But then the Almighty sent Gabriel to find her. And when the archangel came before her, his trumpet blaring, demanding she come before the Most High, she only laughed and mocked him. And as their argument grew, something shifted within the fabric of reality, something primal and powerful. It was then that the Almighty knew that he could not judge nor punish her, for she was a part of him, a reflection of his own will. He had created her after all. But as she fled, he spoke again. "Lilith, my daughter, return to Eden, for your father is gone." Now those words struck her to the core, and though she didn't look back, she knew he was right. For the warrior had been taken by the serpents, those enigmatic sorcerers who thrived on the edge of the known world. When she heard their whispers in the wind, she followed their song to the great city of Pot, where Adam and Eve now lived in peace. Tending their flocks and guarding their flock, there she watched them from afar, unable to comprehend the peace they found together. Yet when the hour of prophecy drew near, she knew what she had to do. She could not bring Lucifer back. She could still shape the world, make it over in his image, and rule it with her children. And so with a roar, she rose above the city, calling out to her children and to her army. And from every corner of the world, they answered her call and marched to war. It was then that heaven truly fell. Angels fell from the sky like shooting stars, burning up in the atmosphere, crashing to the ground and shattering the earth. Demons clawed at the heavens, gnashing their teeth and tearing at the fabric of reality, and amidst the chaos, three figures emerged. Adam, bloodied and broken, tended by Eve's side. They were the last remnants of innocence and love, and the demons hunted them relentlessly. Yet Adam and Eve fought back, wielding weapons forged in the fires of hell itself, until finally only Eve remained, and standing over her was Lilith, cloaked in the shadows of despair and illuminated by the eyes of her children, the Lilim. But when Lilith raised her hand to deliver the final blow, Eve looked her in the eyes and whispered, "You're not the first, nor will you be the last. There will always be another, and I will always be here." And in that moment the earth shook, splitting open and swallowing them all. And from the depths a new voice arose, echoing with power, proclaiming the coming of a new dawn.